When visiting for Holy Mass at the Convito Chapel of the Angelicum, I'd be quietly meditating before this picture that was there in the sacristy, reminding us that the young Oliver Plunkett had been there, had lived there, had prayed there, had celebrated there, and had taught there. He, after ordination, was unable to return to his native land for obvious reasons. There was too much turmoil, it was too dangerous. And so he was for a long time lecturing in the Eternal City. Eventually things calmed down and they thought that they could send him back, but as bishop. He left Rome still only a priest, and he was secretly ordained a bishop at Ghent in Belgium, and he had a very risky journey back. It seems that Divine Providence did intervene in protecting him from loss of life and freedom, and he was able to penetrate quietly and secretly the Emerald Isle with the authority of its own primate, and he proceeded to reorganize what remained of the headless church. He had many to confirm and ordain. He had to visit empty dioceses, and he restructured things as best he could with synods and patient pastoral visiting. He also created schools where even non-Catholics could study and benefit from good teaching, academic life, culture. There was this strange case of Titus Oates, who had been received into the church but then turned against it, and the famous Titus Oates plot led to fear of Catholics, and that is how there was a suspicion around the head of Oliver Plunkett as head of the church in Ireland. He was falsely accused, and they were unable to get the verdict that they wanted in his own land, in Dundalk, and so he was removed and brought to England. He was imprisoned in the terrible Newgate prison, and the door of that prison is still there, kept safely in Drogheda, as a reminder of that painful waiting. And eventually he stood trial without the defence that he needed. They wouldn't give him time to get the witnesses from Ireland, and so it was obviously a rigged trial, and he was automatically found guilty of high treason. He simply answered calmly, Deo gratias. Sentence of death, he writes to the Holy Father, was passed against me on the 15th. It has not caused me the least terror or deprived me of even a quarter of an hour's sleep. I am as innocent of all treason as the child born yesterday. As for my character, profession and function, I did own it publicly, and that being also a motive of my death, I die most willingly, and being the first among the Irish, I shall, with God's grace, give good example to the others not to fear death. I expect daily to be brought to the place of execution, where my bowels are to be cut out and burned before my face, and then my head to be cut off. What speech I will have at my death will be sent to you. If I had obtained sufficient time to have brought my witnesses from Ireland, I think I should have defended myself as regards these romances of treason. But it was not granted to me, and I was brought to my trial destitute of all legal ways of defence. And so he was hanged, drawn and quartered at Tyburn in 1681, the last of a great army. Many were tortured cruelly in the Tower of London, and we know that the Holy Mass itself was celebrated there in secret by tortured limbs. These remind us that faith, true faith, unity of faith are important. One cannot remove oneself from communion with the See of Peter and be safe. When the Lord prayed intensely before his own death that we may all be one, he intended us to hear what he was praying and to execute his divine will with regard to protecting the supernatural gift of unity that he has given to the one true church. They managed to rescue bits of his quartered body. We have a major relic of his in the church of the area where he grew up, in Oldcastle, and we have the head itself near here in Drogheda. It was craftily smuggled out and into Protestant England by being concealed behind a clock face. All that could be seen was a clock, and for years it was invisible behind the same clock face. It was in the Dominican convent, the Siena convent, in the Cord Road in Drogheda. Some years ago there was a fire which burned the convent down, and at that point they decided to give it over to Drogheda itself, to the Church of St. Peter's, while they moved on to the new convent purpose-built at the edge of Drogheda. And at that point they decided to take it out of the clock and create a glorious shrine for it. And what was their delight when they found that the head was perfectly preserved. And so one has not a skull, but truly a head, in which one sees the suffering, the dignity of the Primate of Ireland in 1681. Pain and glory and dignity combined. This then is the head of the Church in Ireland at a very difficult time, the local saint and one to be invoked, that we may be aware, especially on a day like this, when a schism is being formed, that we may be faithful to the See of Peter as he was. One faith. for the saints who from their labours rest, holy by faith, before the world confessed. Thy name, O Jesus, you'll be forever blessed. Hallelujah, hallelujah. How was the road where food was unlimited? Down on the captain in the well-food fight. Now in the darkness that bear their wonderful light. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, may thy soldiers faithful, true, and bold fight as the saints who nobly fought to hold. And we will name the victor's crown of gold. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, blessed communion, fellowship divine, we feebly struggle, then in glory shine. Yet all are one in thee, for our Lord. Hallelujah, hallelujah. And when the strife is fierce, the warfare long, steals on the other distant triumph song, and hearts are brave again and arms are strong. Hallelujah, hallelujah. The golden evening brightens in the west, soon, soon to faithful warriors come with rest. Sweet is the calm of paradise the blessed. Hallelujah, hallelujah. But now there breaks a yet more glorious day, the saints triumphant rising brighter ray. The King of glory passes on his way.